quiet. Okay, cool. I'm so excited you're all here. Thank you for being here today. If it's your first time in Deep Vellum, shame on you. Come back all the time because we do cool shit, and now you know. We are the largest publisher of literature in translation in the United States and possibly the world. Yay! That's that whole wall. And this is our 10th year anniversary. And we've always been here in Dallas doing this. So maybe like another clapping for that. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce one of my all-time favorite poets who I've been sweating for like a month since I found that they were coming to town. So Eileen, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for creating this anthology. And thank y'all for coming.
So yeah, Riley, thank you so much for bringing me here, and Deep Vellum being so cool, and you guys are coming tonight. So it's just so, doing an anthology is this whole other thing. Like I just feel like this like oddball choir master at these events, because I am used to mostly being, I'm the poet and I'm reading alone and stuff, and most of the tour has been really fun because I've gone all over the country and Canada too, and if there were authors from that town, they would get up and read, and otherwise we would find people who would read like cover, because I feel like music is always used to people covering songs, but we don't do it that much as poets or writers, except when somebody dies. Like when a poet dies, everybody reads their work, and then it's so weird because it's always that awkward thing, like the poet puts on the bear skin of the dead author, and it always sounds like them, So it's kind of it's cool, but it's very odd. So I think it's been a really fun exercise in hearing other voices. And it's like 30% dead, So those people are not going to show up, but you guys are. So I don't know, and I've had this idea for a while because pathetic it's like the book has been like a long date with what I love, because it's sort of like it was I at a certain point. I mean, it says this in the book, but it was like in the 90s there was this thing in the art world called pathetic masculinity, and it was about guys doing kind of awkward, emotional, sentimental stuff, and it was like a friend of mine who was in the art world said, but they're just doing feminism, but like being really successful at it, And so then I was like, well, what does pathetic literature mean? And I just thought, well, that's just the stuff that I'm into. Like everybody I know, especially myself, are pathetic authors, and it just felt like stuff that's too big, too meaty, too large, too weird, too awkward. So it's not quite avant-garde, and it's not quite queer, and it's not quite feminist, and it's not quite, but it's all those things in a way, in some new combination. It's kind of emo, too. And so I was going to do this, it was in my, Grove is my publisher at this point in time, and it was sort of in my contract that I was going to do this one day. But then, it's sort of like, I don't know, like in New York, there's this thing where you see people you haven't seen for a long time, and before you leave, you go, let's have coffee. And you're like, yeah. And that means you never see that person again, And I feel like this was like that. Like it was in my contract, I was going to do this book someday, but then during the pandemic, it just seemed like the greatest idea to just sort of, like today, like, what would I want from Kafka to be in here? What's pathetic that Kafka ever wrote, And the first thing I put in here was Simone Weil, who, some of you guys know her, but she was a philosopher and a very suffering Marxist philosopher. And what she does, and she was a Jew who converted to Catholicism. So what's so great, though, about the piece of hers that's in here is she explains very carefully why, even though she wants to be a Catholic, she will not get baptized, because she wants to be with all the people who are outside of the church, And I thought that's totally the aesthetic of the book, like the inside outsiders, So I want to read. I want to read a tiny bit of the introduction, and then you'll hear other people read. So in general, and it's great, it's like it sounds like me because I wrote it. In general, poems are pathetic and diaries are pathetic. Really, literature is pathetic. Ask anybody who doesn't care about literature. They would agree if they bothered at all. Perhaps the only accomplishment here is I'm saying that as an insider. This book is a kind of hollow. All these pieces of the rock, meaning literature, long and short, are just what I like. The invention of pathetic literature surely is, say, Shōnagon's The Pillow Book. Do you know this book? I mean, I heard about this book forever, you know, and I just thought it was too girly for me. I was like, the Pillow Book. I don't want to read the Pillow Book, you know. But in fact, it's totally Warhol. It's like she was a courtesan 1,000 years ago, and she just was basically talking shit about people, and then also saying what she loved. And but then at some point they found her. They found her diary, and so it kind of ruined it for her. So more than 1,000 years ago, she kept her diaries, her adorable lists, but being discovered, she admits, kind of ruined things. So for me, I feel like in light of our different pace, I'd say we're ready for ruin. And that's a lot of what this is about. I'm going to read a couple more grabs from it. I've collected whoever's in here for their dedication to a moment that bends, not in a gay way, but you know how when you're, and I mean like gay in high school, but like that's so gay. You know? But you know how when you're walking towards the horizon, it seemingly dips, and you feel something. That's pathetic. It's an empathetic thing. The light shifts, and biologically, we turn too. People get different. Take the word crepuscular, which is like the worst poetry word in the world. You know, like crepuscular. You know, it's like shard. It's like the blue moment. Some creatures, and this is true, I learned that some creatures only come out right then. A lot of the world is trained to think of that part of existence as vacation or what happens during drinks. But I'm saying no, I think that feels like a life. As a citizen of the United States, I'm always surprised by where I live and how I live. Looking back on 2003, when George Bush was bombing the hell out of Iraq, it's clear the destruction of the World Trade Center handed George an opportunity. So I'm gonna hop a little bit here. Cindy Sheehan's 20, you guys know this part, right? This is very Texas. This book is completely about Texas, actually. Cindy Sheehan's 25-year-old son, U.S. Army Specialist Casey Sheehan, was killed in action in Iraq, and so she met several months later with other military families in Bush, who then pretty much kept bombing and destroying Iraq in the name of freedom. So Cindy Sheehan wanted to talk to him again. She sat at the end of George Bush's street in Crawford, Texas, and waited. They called it Camp Casey. 1,500 people joined her. Sheehan said, if he even starts to say freedom and democracy, I'm going to say bullshit. You tell me the truth. You tell me that my son died for oil. You tell me that my son died to make your friends rich. You tell me that. You don't tell me my son died for freedom and democracy. She also vowed not to pay her federal income tax for 2004. I mentioned Cindy Sheehan because I recall a conservative commentator calling her that pathetic woman. Her sitting there, her famous act, meant that as a woman, Cindy Sheehan was taking more space than she deserved. And that aspect of pathetic is what I'm truly interested in here. The act of taking a little more or a little less. It's the essence of a political meaning. A pathetic man is chatty, effusive, kind of gayish in the high school sense of the word. But what does gay mean other than non-conforming? The space he's taken is a woman's. You can't take the wrong space, a woman's space, and be masculine. And one more teeny piece. If you deliberately go through the door the wrong way, many of us at once, I hear a whoosh. There's this profound redundancy, meaning we go to literature to describe states of being, of mind producing sudden and inexplicable feeling. Can a feeling go both ways? Can we hate and love? I would never argue why anybody needs poetry, but everyone can find a poem that elaborates a model responsible to their own way of thinking, not so much for consolation or confirmation. It bestows on you a gestational feeling, like it birthed you, and you feel like you did it. It's your double. What author has not had that feeling when they meet a reader and they smile at you like you are them? Yikes. It is so violating. And yet aesthetics will not protect you. You are not alone. And when somebody thinks they can see your mind, reading is a collaborative act. It takes away the onceness of the world and it gives it back repeatedly. And language is the loss that repairs. So now Riley has cooked up
some readers. Now
other readers. And I'm going to come back. I want to read some poems at the end, you know.
And we'll talk about it maybe.
And we'll talk about it. Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so okay. So
you're nervous, right?
Yeah, I am. Now I have to like call people.
I'm very relaxed now.
I didn't tell any of them who was gonna go first. But excitingly for Deep Vellum, the first book that Will Evans, he's in the back, we love him, yay Will Evans, he's the reason that this is here and founded this whole wonderment, published a book in translation from Spanish called Texas the Great Theft. It is by Carmen Boyosa. It is a work of genius, and it's excerpted in this book, which is really exciting for everybody.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah. Literally that. So if Ez could come and read that excerpt to start us off, that'd be great. Let's clap for Ez. Ez is a poet and artist and works for the city of Dallas, but not tonight.
Don't tell my boss I'm here. Can y'all hear me? Do you have a, is this a mic? Is this working?
Well, it doesn't make you louder. The Twitch can hear you now.
Okay. What's up, Twitch?
You're going crazy.
All right. Let
What's
me.
the Twitch?
It's our live
It's
stream.
a screening platform.
Okay.
Yeah, so people can watch online.
Oh.
All right. Here I go. Maybe I'll take this off later. On James Street, just before Charles, a small group of his men are.
You should yell it out.
I'm really a bad reader.
Say it like you mean
So
it.
that
It is what it is.
fuck yeah.
A small group of his men are chewing the fat gathered around Doña Estefania's shopping. Sacks of unripe oranges, onions, and garlic tied to the back of a mule. Ludovico, a gunman and an excellent vaquero, has stopped in this spot next to the window where the smiling face of Moonbeam, the pretty Asinai Indian, sometimes appears. She's so pretty. If the Smiths would sell her, he'd buy her in a heartbeat. And if they won't sell her, he might just steal her from them, or else he's not a man. He eyes the window, searching for Moonbeam's face. From her bedroom balcony, hidden behind the lace curtains, Caroline, the youngest Smith, spies on them, hoping to catch a glimpse of Nepomuceno, whom she's completely infatuated with. Ludovico is daydreaming, blinking at the window. Fulgencio and Silvestre are busting a gut laughing at him. Who knows why? They don't spot their men until they're right in front of them. They toss the sacks of oranges across their saddles, mount their horses, and hurry after them. In their haste, one of the sacks of oranges turns upside down. No sooner have they passed the corner of Charles and James than, wouldn't you know it, the fruit begins to fall out, bouncing on the cobblestones. They pack heads towards Elizabeth Street, Nepomuceno in the lead. The mule carrying the onions and garlic follows fast on their tails out of sheer instinct. Who knows where it gets its energy from? His short legs look like they're flying. On the outskirts of Broomville, further inland, another small band of Nepomuceno's men waits. When they see where the group is headed, they mount their horses and follow. They're creating one big cloud of dust. They take the turn off to the dock, and as the earth becomes damper, the telltale cloud of dust settles down. They arrive at a muddy riverbank. They stop several feet from the barge, which is already loaded with livestock. Pedro y Pablo, who help old Arnoldo in the boat and have been well trained, both boys are barefoot, and since their combined age is 16, their nickname is 2/8. Have just loaded the last of the herd onto the boat and are about to close the gate. The barge is balanced. When Nepomuceno and his men appear, the boys are just closing the gate, walking along the edge of the deck. The coal has been moved to the tugboat to keep the barge balanced. The motor is running hot. They're about to release the moorings. Two thick chains which keep the barge moored to the dock at its bow and its stern. They both have rope wrapped around their torsos. They'll tighten it if the barge begins to list. Pedro will travel on deck with his German Shepherd. Pablo will sit with old Arnoldo in the tugboat's stern in the cabin. Old Arnoldo, who is deaf as a doorknob, is already at the tug's tiller. He doesn't like transporting livestock one bit. In addition to the whims of the river, you have to contend with the whims of the herd. He's got the bullhorn at his feet in case he needs it. The livestock aren't restless, but they rock the boat and roll the tug. Pablo and Pedro work with steady hands. One mistake can make the barge lose its balance and tip them over. If the animals become agitated, it's not enough to be on alert. The herd is traveling unattended, the wranglers are depending on the barge's rails, and the animals fear of water. They wait on the opposite riverbank. On the dock, without saying a word, Nepomuceno motions his orders. Ismael, a vaquero, leaps off his horse and jumps across the gap between the dock and the barge. All aboard. Thanks.
Thanks, Ez. If you want to buy that book, we have it. In addition to like everything that we could get by Eileen, and specifically the anthology. Okay, Linda. Wait, say what you're reading.
Yeah, so I've got a poem. If anyone has their anthologies out and wants to turn to it, it's
All right.
227. Page 227. And the poem is called Catullus Tells Me Not to Write the Rant Against the Poem Good Bones by Maggie Smith, by the cyborg Eileen Myles. You don't like the poem. So what? Why are you clicking on her, following her? I know. The metaphor sucks. So let's get drunk, score some poppers, act like horses, call up Alec. Who is he to deprive me of the local geraniums? Just because he owns a thrift store. I got thrift and I got stored in the libraries. I am checked out. That poem is boring. It's the same poem y'all been reading in your centuries. Someone gets sad, buys a house, has children, politics, and little birdies. Throw some ableism in and publish it. Here's a poem for you. Ignatius had a beard and I fucked him.
Hey! Yeah. Yeah?
Lovely. I'm going to be reading from page 216 and 217, but apparently, may I?
Yeah, please.
Apparently there was a part of the poem that was not added into it. So I will be reading that as well.
It's like a poet's hell. The last stanza, 2 stanzas are gone, but we can give it to you if you buy the book tonight.
It can be written in.
We will handwrite you.
Lovely. This is Stop by Joan Larkin. I hate it when you fill my glass up without asking me. I always liked a little on a plate in a cup, an egg with space around it, an orange with a knife next to it, a cup with space above the coffee, discrete colors, orange, pewter, black, the porcelain glaze on the china, the blue napkin. I want to keep things separate. I hate it when you break my egg. I hate when you salt things when you assume I want cream, or the shade down, or touch, or looks of kindness. I want nothing to lose its cutting edge, nothing to run together. You'd better stop pouring yourself into my glass.
Woo. Wow. Okay, Chris. Let's do the Tom Cole. We can clap for Chris. This is what happens when you're enough of a regular as a teenager at a bookstore. They ask you to read at readings.
My favorite little thing was Linda being Southern for a moment. She was
Yeah.
like, let's open our little hymn books. All right.
We love a page reference.
Ooh. Okay. And this is Light Change by Tom Cole. I'm tapering from my off-label high dosages of Effexor, and I go from 375 milligrams to 300 milligrams. I start to listen to the radio, and it is my sincere feeling that the radio combined with the electromagnetic tear in my ass, in turn, create a tear in the space-time continuum. We have all been transported to 1980, but I can't explain why. Maybe it's Y2K, maybe it's Zika, maybe global warming, or the Montauk Project. A secret governmental experiment where the scientists believed nerves in the sphincters, when combined with extreme Tesla coils, electromagnetic pulses, and radio transmissions lead to psychic binding in a tear in the space-time continuum. For the subject and everyone within a 25-foot radius of the point of insertion into the anus. It happened. Lots of people missing from public parts. And now I am at 150 milligrams of Effexor. Thinking. You know, like hours and hours, a day, nonstop since Wednesday. I've just had this breakthrough and I feel really happy right now. And I don't think it is an illusion breakthrough, but I'm gonna finish up all my projects that are computer-based. And then in March, I'm gonna quit my job. And I'm gonna work on totally, step by step, disengaging from doing stuff with computers that I used to do in other ways, like writing with a pen on paper or reading a book, and I will work. But I'm not going to work in front of a computer. So that's just going to be my compass. And stop listening to the radio on behalf of the electromagnetic tear in my sphincter. I'm going to be an exploratory step-by-step process, kind of like a project. I think I'm going to do it. I wanted to tell you because I'm so excited because I've just been going through agonizing. Agonizing? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? I can't live like this anymore.
I kind of want want to read one?
Please, I would like more.
Okay, yeah, more
What are
reading.
you gonna read?
I want to read the Sophie Robinson.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I fucking love Sophie Robinson. If Sophie Robinson is hearing this. Sophie Robinson's not here, but I love you. Okay, it's called Total LOL by Sophie Robinson. Rah, 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 rah. That is how a dog goes. That is how a dog goes. Boom in the night. That is how a dog slides sideways. That is how a dog lies down in the grass and loafers and dies like the bad, dead dog it really is inside its orgied guts. And this is how we do it. In, out, in, out. This is how we move inside the dog space. This is how we are inside the dog. I am the dog head with my head in the dog. You are the dog end with your end inside the dog. We are a pantomime dog, and this is how we do it. Right, left, left, right. This is how we walk like the sick dogs we are. That is how we fuck ourselves inside out, and our fur turns to mush. This is how we think of something to make us cry on purpose. This is how we be brave and glass over like a sad dog's eyes. This is how we eat our own shit and sing with a mouthful all night long. Rah, 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 rah. This is how we know ourselves, and this is how we hate each other, and this is how we sound when we speak each other's language, and how your pussy tastes on a hard day's night. I like to suffer, it's good for us, and makes us wet with pride, or raw with longing, pulling at the leash. I might die. I might lie down and die. You can dog me in the park, and I won't let it lie. I'd screw you 5,000 times and still be happy in my mummy skin, and my daggy dog skin, and my fox fur mangy woof woof jacket. My skin is my life jacket. My skin has a hole in it. My hole is round and red. My hole is in my dog's head. I will die forever in my sick dog head. I will LOL forever in my total bowl of meat. I will LOL with my hole wide open. I will LOL all night to the tune of my how. Oh. I will place you in my snout and sing you all over. I will raw myself all up and down inside you lover forever.
More.
I kind of want more.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I have more marked. I got some short ones. Does anyone want to
Step up.
feel brave?
Feeling it?
Yeah? Yeah.
Cool.
Just be a random person.
Yeah, random person.
absolutely.
Random amazing poet.
Oh, fuck yes! Okay, how about an Alice Notley?
Give up.
The Alice Notley?
Oh, is it me?
Yeah.
Hi.
No, yes, both of you.
Both of
Well, not at the same time, but you're reading too. Yeah.
down or
Well, you
stand up?
come on.
Just come up here.
Yeah. Move you in when we're ready.
Yeah. Yes, brave volunteers.
The green room. Right here.
Yeah. All my life, since I was 10, I have been waiting to be in this hell here with you. All I've ever wanted and still do. Thank you.
That's just a love poem, right?
Yeah, that's, oh my god, it oozes.
So good.
Okay.
There you go.
You want a long one? You want a pro?
I like Lucille Clifton.
Okay, fuck yeah. The mother, yeah.
All right.
I don't know who you are, but I'm so excited you're here.
All right. I'm just gonna look at it first so I don't fuck it up.
Oh, cool. I have another one for you after that, too.
Okay. All right. This is called A Mother's Story by Lucille Clifton. A line of women I don't know, she said, came in and whispered over you, each one fierce word, she said, each word, more powerful than the one before. And I thought, what is this to bring one black girl to Buffalo? Until the last one came and smiled, she said, and filled your ear with light. And that, she said, has been the one, the last one, the last one.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, actually, this is a great one to read. Why don't you read this? Would you wear my eyes?
What happened to this book?
My dog ate it.
Sure he did. It's just an excuse.
Like literally.
No, my dog really did eat it.
It wasn't you?
All right, this one is Would You Wear My Eyes by Bob Kaufman. My body is a torn mattress, disheveled, throbbing place for the comings and goings of loveless transients. The whole of me is an unfurnished room, filled with dank breath escaping a gas to nowhere. Before completely objective mirrors, I have shot myself with my eyes, but death refused my advances. I have walked on my walls each night through strange landscapes in my head. I have brushed my teeth with orange peel. Iced with cold blood from the dripping faucets, my face is covered with maps of dead nations. My hair is littered with drying ragweed. Bitter raisins drip haphazardly from my nostrils while schools of glowing minnows swim from my mouth. The nipples of my breasts are sun-browned cockleburrs. Long forgotten, Indian tribes fight battles on my chest. Unaware of the sunken ships rotting in my stomach, my legs are charred remains of burned cypress trees. My feet are covered with moss from bayous flowing across my floor. I can't go out anymore. I shall sit on my ceiling. Would you wear my eyes?
Yeah. You look like you were ready.
I know.
Oh, you're ready. You're ready. Would you read Fred Moulton?
I'll do it. Just find
Okay.
it. Now
I want to hear Fred
I'll shake
Moulton.
your hand. Hey, lovely to meet you.
Pleased to meet
Very
you.
important to me.
Okay, wait, where's
Fred Moulton?
where is it in?
Just alphabetically, just F. Well, I guess your first name alphabetical.
Oh.
So,
First name alphabetical?
right, that's very, like,
Psycho.
lesbian. I didn't even know, I just thought it was personal. But they said, oh, that's like a whole thing, like, it's not patriarchal.
Nice. See? That does make sense.
I thought I was patriarchal.
I won't tell anybody. Okay, wait, some of the pages. Here we go.
Okay, great.
Right.
Hey.
See what I got myself into. God. There is religious tattooing.
Yes.
Very on point. For a long time, the lotion stigma swirled on the man whose clothes me with a broken world. I came when they called me. That cotton rubbed me the wrong way, all the way inside over the course of time, way before cotton sewn into the coat of the one who clothes me. Before I started clothing them with paper, before cotton sewn in two. Their coats they curled up on flat boats, all the way back up the country. The beaded strips of leather and cotton made me come to myself when he called me and wrote me. On the one who clothes me, pour some water on me, make coming matter cut and twirl on me. The law of emulsion is always broke on me. Somebody pour some beautiful jute on me, let her blow some horn on me. The man who clothes me in my skin is gonna write on me. Your writing moves to stop on me. Someday they're gonna curve this on a pearl on me, but now it's time to go, and I can't wait to get up from here. It's simple to stay furled where you can't live. For a long, long time I've been wearing this other planet like a scar on me. Thank you for choosing that.
Others you want to hear?
I forget your name, this person, you that just turned. You looked ready.
Let's go, Leo.
Let's do it. Oh, I think maybe we just want to hear a little Judy Grahn, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, please.
Oh wait, show me your boots so we can like compare boots.
Oh, these are my mom's boots.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
My mom stole my boots, so she bought me a new pair.
Good mom.
Yeah.
How fast should we go? I think we have a couple, well, this is a very long poem, so we can't read it all, right?
We'll do parts.
Let's do part. Okay. Why don't you read a couple of pages?
Okay.
And then you're next. It's like you who are turning your head.
Here?
Yes.
A woman is talking to death. Yeah. You can
Okay,
actually
stop
read
here.
right to see where it
Yep,
says
yep,
he
I
died
saw that.
laughing. That's a fact.
I got you.
Cool.
A woman is talking to death. 1. Testimonials and trials that never got heard. My lover's teeth are white geese flying above me. My lover's muscles are rope ladders under my hands. We were driving home slow, my lover and I, across the long Bay Bridge. One February midnight, when midway, over in the far left lane, I saw a stranger scene. One small young man standing by the rail, and in the lane itself, parked straight across, as if it could stop anything. A large young man upon a stalled motorcycle, perfectly relaxed, as if he'd stopped at a hamburger stand. He was wearing a peacoat and Levi's, and he had his back roaring. You could almost hear the laugh. It was so real. Look at that fool, I said, in the middle of the bridge like that. A very womanly remark. Then we hear the meaning of the noise of metal on the concrete bridge at 50 miles an hour, and the far left lane filled up with a big car that had a motorcycle jammed on its front bumper, like the whole thing would explode. The friction sparks shot up bright orange for many feet into the air, and the racket still sets my teeth on edge. When the car stopped, we stopped, parallel, and Wendy headed for the call box, while I ducked across those 6 lanes like a mouse in the bowling alley. Are you hurt? I said. The middle-aged driver had the grayest black face. I couldn't stop. What happened? Then I remembered. Somebody, I said, was on the motorcycle. I ran back. 1 block, 2 blocks. The space for walking on the bridge is maybe 18 inches. Whoever engineered this arrogance in the dark, stiff wind, it seemed I would be pushed over the rail, would fall down, screaming onto the hard surface of the bay, but I did not. I found the tall young man who thought he owned the bridge, now lying on his stomach, head cradled in his broken arm. He had glasses on, but somewhere he had lost most of his Levi's. Where were they? And his shoes. 2 short cuts on his buttocks. That was the only mark, except his thin white seminal tubes were all strung out behind. No child left in him, and he looked asleep. I plucked wildly at his wrist, then put it down. There were 2 long-haired women holding back traffic just behind me, with their bare hands. The machines came down like mad bulls. I was scared, much more than usual. I felt easily squished, like the earthworms crawling on a busy sidewalk after rain. I wanted to leave, and met the driver walking back. The guy is dead. I gripped his hand. The wind was going to blow us off the bridge. Oh my God, he said. Haven't I had enough trouble in my life? He raised his head, and for a second was enraged and yelling at the top of the bridge. I was just driving home. His head fell down. My God, and now I've killed somebody. I looked down at my own peacoat and Levi's, then over at the dead man's friend, who was bawling and blubbering, what they would call hysteria in a woman. It isn't possible, he wailed, but it was possible. It was indeed accomplished and unfeeling, snoring in its peacoat and without its Levi's on. He died laughing. That's a fact.
You should finish it, right? I'll just get to the last couple of pages. Okay. See death and disfigurement.
amazing.
Yeah, yeah. I'll read one poem.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Death and disfiguration. One Christmas Eve, my lovers and I, we left the bar, driving home slow. There was a woman lying in the snow by the side of the road.
Can I ask you to yell it out?
Oh, yeah.
I think you will.
Death and disfiguration. One Christmas Eve, my lovers and I, we left the bar, driving home slow. There was a woman lying in the snow by the side of the road. She was wearing a bathrobe and no shoes. Where were her shoes? She had turned the snow pink under her feet. She was an Asian woman, didn't speak much English, but she said the taxi driver beat her up and raped her, throwing her out of his care. What on earth was she doing there on a street she helped to pay for but doesn't own? Doesn't she know to stay home? I am a pervert, therefore I've learned to keep my hands to myself in public, but I was so drunk that night I actually did something loving. I took her in my arms, this woman, until she could breathe right. And my friends, who are perverts too, they touched her too. We all touched her. You're going to be all right, we lied. She started to cry. I'm 55 years old, she said. And that said everything. 6 big policemen answered the call, no child in them. They seemed afraid to touch her, then grabbed her like a corpse and heaved her on their metal stretcher into the van, crashing and clumsy. She was more frightened than before. They were cold and bored. Don't leave me, she said. She'll be all right, they said. We left, as we have left all of our lovers, as all lovers leave all lovers, much too soon to get the real loving done. A mock interrogation. Why did you get into the cab? Oh, wait a second. Was that the end? Done, and then 8. This is a different one?
Yeah, it's the same, but it's a different
thing.
section.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Much too soon to get the real loving done. 8. This is a different one. A mock interrogation. Why did you get into the cab with him dressed as you are? I wanted to go somewhere. Did you know what the cab driver might do if you got into the cab with him? I just wanted to go somewhere. How many times did you get into the cab with him? I don't remember. If you don't remember, how do you know it happened to you? 9. Hey, you, death. Ho and ho, poor death. Our lovers' teeth are white geese flying above us. Our lovers' muscles are rope ladders under our hands. Even though no women yet go down to the sea in ships except in their dreams. Only the arrogant invent a quick and meaningful end for themselves of their own choosing. Everyone else knows how very slow it happens, how the woman's existence bleeds out her years, how the child shoots up at 10 and is arrested and old. How the man carries a murderous shell within him and passes it on. We are the fat of the land, and we all have our list of casualties. To my lovers I bequeath the rest of my life. I want nothing left of me for you. Ho, death, except some fertilizer for the next batch of us, who do not hold hands with you, who do not embrace you, who try not to work for you, or sacrifice themselves, or trust or believe you. Ho, ignorant death, how do you know we happen to you? Wherever our meat hangs on our own bones for our own use, your pot is so empty. Death, ho death, you shall be poor.
And we're about to have a conversation, except that I just wanted to do a little tiny, I have a book of poems coming out in April. I want to do a little trailer for it. So I'm going to read a couple of poems. Let's see. So it's called A Working Life. And I think the idea was like a working model, except it's a working life. So, like this is a plan for something else, or these are a plan for this, I think. So this is called Lucky Kittens. I met something cool and I can't shake it. I want to write a poem to the new thing. Nothing more trans than taking a shit in the men's room in a hotel. Also, I had a perfect breakfast and am well. I exercised, all good things, and once again, I'm flying. A world without mother is a world without me. I'm not crying, I'm flying. Honestly, I took my mother's tear from the corner of her eye. It happened when she died. I took it on my finger and I wiped it on my jeans. The rattling of paper is an exquisite disconnect. Old-fashioned, all breaks, making space, always ready for a fight. My heat is instantly shadowy, like a moving hand, or sound, like no jazz at all. And I gotta read a couple more.
Yeah, no, keep reading.
And this one is like, I mean, I think we're a little sick about hearing about the pandemic, but still all this work got done during it, you know? So I was involved with somebody, I was in Texas, and my then girlfriend was on Long Island. And so, and she kept saying, come here, and I'm like, no. And so I was like, what could be worse than New York? It was like the worst part of the, so I was trying to, so this is a poem trying to like, make that work. So it's called Put My House. Put my house inside the boat. Can we do that? Put my dog inside of your dog. Put these birds inside of yours. Put my ocean. Put your ocean all over my mountains. Put my mountains in there. Put my dog in yours. My dog walk is safe inside your dog walk. Let me eat inside you. Let me eat your food. Let me eat your house. Put your house inside my dog. Put your dog on my boat. Naturalize. Put my heart in yours. Put my mouth on your mouth. Put my hair in yours. Let me breathe inside you. Let me smell your guts. Put your boat in my eye. Let me eat your friends. Put these hours inside your hours. Eat this bird cheap. Eat my dog's foot. Eat that ocean. Run to him or the ocean. Run to them, hear these birds cheep. Fly to me, eat my foot. Put my house inside yours, in your mind, think me fly. This fly me home, love me now. Forget your phone, eat my heart. Run to him or the ocean. Tweet, tweet, tweet. Dog growl, cluck, click. Put my house right in there. Yeah, that's me looking out the window. Look at me, bark, bark, bark. Put your heart inside that bark. And maybe I'll read another one.
Yeah.
And this one's called Love Song. The sky hates me, I must be calm. I must be calm if I have any chance of goodness at all. A child in a snowstorm, a man faces death slow. A gibbet is hanging, I don't know what it is. For a few dollars I can save a horse. A deer must hide, my dog is far away. Your dog, a joker, is close. A man travels with a wolf, and that is Victor Hugo. His inkiness is pure translation, perhaps. I have charm in my native language. Shelves pushed up against each other to jam the door. Flinging it open, I am terribly in love with you. I cite your gifts. I suggest I am best without you, and yet this yellow wind, I saw the day you were there, and I never felt such desire. I say I am in decline. How could you possibly want this? Alone, I'm strong. Alone, I'm a muffin. I offer you a piece of my charm and relinquish my attachment to being a hermit in an old wooden house. I am kindly to your child. He is ours.
Oh.
I think that's almost it. Oh, I know, I'll read one teeny, teeny, teeny one.
Like a little one.
I think. Or no, I'll read a teeny one and then a kind of a sweet one. I kept the mask on because I thought I looked good. This restaurant really needs a candle, and like it heard me, a plane passed overhead.
Woo!
Haiku.
Yeah.
And now this is the last one. This is it. It's called Mice. They see a cluster of small rubber ducks and scraps of broken shells and think, I'll shit there. We describe them as brazen when they run through what actually is their home. So I begin to kill them because I'm better than them. One was seen running into the bathroom, my bathroom, and a small frail one was found dead right on the floor, and the poison is working, and I feel bad because, in fact, I like living with them. They're part of my life. They're little shits everywhere, and I have killed their child. They're unclean. Anyone would say, isn't it why I must kill them? But I'm unclean too. Isn't that why they're here? And I generally have guests who say, this place is so small. They look around and I feel shame. And I look around, usually right after a trip or in a couple of days, and it's small, but not to them. They think it's huge, perfect, and that is a friend. And why don't I keep them around? Come back, and I know you will.
Yeah. That was so cool.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for putting this together.
Yeah.
Wow, a poetry cover night.
Yeah.
We might have to do this.
I know. I wind up covering myself, so I feel thorough.
Okay, I'm just going to start at the beginning with Texas.
Yeah.
What did you mean this whole book is Texas?
Well, I mean, I think there actually is a lot of Texas in there. You know?
Why?
Well, you get a man.
Yeah. Like, when did you get here?
Well, I think when I said that, I realized there were incidents in the introduction that literally were about Texas and from Texas, and I mean, like Texas is. I mean, I have only started to live in Texas starting in like 2015, but there's a lot of Texases, you know. And then I once I started to live here, I realized there were just all sorts of political events that happened in my lifetime that happened in Texas and really affected, obviously, the rest of the country. And so I edited the book in Texas. I was in Texas mostly during the pandemic, and so I was in my house in Marfa putting this book together. So.
And how'd you end up in Marfa?
I was a Lannan Fellow. I was, forever I heard of Marfa, and it was this cool place where I had never done a reading, and I was like, they don't like me. Nobody in Marfa has ever invited me. I was like, resentful poet. And then I got invited to go and do this amazing residency that no longer exists, sadly. And so I spent a month there, but almost as soon as I got there, I was like, I was kind of wanting to, like forever, like when I was younger, first I grew up in Boston, I lived in New York, and New York is great, except that, within a year or two, you realize you just have to get out of there. It makes you really crazy. And so as a young person, I would have friends who would have places outside of the city, and I would visit them, and that was how I would get out. And then I would start to go to artist colonies, and I just started to have a way, or I would, if I had some money, I would rent a place for a couple of months. So I started to have ways of getting out of New York. And so then I got to the place where I thought, I need a place that is mine to get out of. So when I was in Marfa, I was like, oh my God, this is the place, and I found a really cheap house, and I bought it. And so since then, I've been living there. So that's my Texas story.
Yeah, no, it's a great Texas story.
Yeah.
Usually people like fall in love with somebody and get stuck here. It's like
that's true of every place, I think.
Yeah, but it's like unfortunately true. Like it's anyways. But you're from Boston. Would you ever live in Boston? Would you ever go back and live in Boston?
I've tried to, and I can't. Whenever it's usually some way that I would have money if I lived in Boston. So there's like various fellowships that I apply for and always get rejected. And it's like I think it is one of those things where the place, it's like if you grew up in Boston, it would be very hard to go to Harvard. Like they don't want people from Boston going to Harvard. You know what I mean? They want people from the rest of the world. And so I think that I'm always, whenever I try and get a fellowship or something in Boston, I say, I'm from Boston. And when I did a gig in Boston for this book, what I said, which I think is really true, is the most pathetic thing in Boston is to say you're from Boston. It's a very racist, classist kind of messed up place that I love in many ways.
Like America.
Yeah, like America.
In
yeah.
Texas.
Yeah. So it just so I never found the right way to live in Boston again. So I may never live in Boston again.
Well, you sound a lot like you're from Boston, but like specifically when you read your work.
I write in a Boston accent.
Yeah.
It's very weird.
Have you always done that?
I think it's it's like where you come from is home, and I think your voice. You learned language in that place.
Yeah.
Like when I go to Boston, I spent a month in Boston like a few years ago to write something about it, and I realized that, and I never even, when I lived in Boston, I never even drove. I was like the kid, I mean, I was such a bad alcoholic, so it was better that I was not driving. And so I had no adult experience in Boston. I was always a passenger or, whatever. And so being in Boston and driving and looking at street names, I learned to read in Boston. So I was like, Trowbridge. I was like this baby. It was so funny. I realized that these words were such a part of me. Because because you would be riding with your parents in a car and you would see Dana Street. Or there was this Beacon Motors, and it was a family joke, because I was like, Beacon Motors. And I was like, it's Beacon, Eileen. It's not, And so it was like struggling with the language. So the language is all over. And so I think it's deep, I think, the way language. So you write in that.
It almost like rhymes different with your vowels.
If I hear the poet John Wieners, I know how he sounds, because he writes poetry in a Boston accent. It rhymes. When he goes, care, it's like care, it's that kind of,
Sweet.
Yeah.
So when did you start collecting this? Can you give a little background? I know we talked about it today. You taught a class.
I taught a class in San Diego, and I was I was a professor for 5 years, and so I could teach graduate seminars. And so I was like, what would I want to teach? So I thought pathetic literature. So it was really great to invite graduate students to take. And then we had a pathetic conference, which very few people came to. It was really funny.
That's ideal.
Yeah, it was great.
That's what you want. I was really interested in this because the idea of you're putting all these works here, so if everything burns down and then this book stays,
right?
If someone found a book from 2022, it's published in 22, right? Like this is all they've got.
That's very moving. Yeah,
it's really emotional.
It's an archive.
Yeah, that's what when I was trying to come up with questions for you, I was doing lame things like looking up the definition of anthology.
Right.
And then I was like, because it's going to be a big deal, and all the cool reviews are like a very important anthology, and that's how I feel. I feel like I found some of my favorite work looking through anthologies, like other people's really good mixtapes. Like not necessarily listening to an album, but a mixtape.
Yeah.
And then I was trying to come up with other really important anthologies to point to.
Right.
You named a really good one today.
The New American Poetry. Do you know this one? It came out in the 60s. And it's sort of like in retrospect, it's like a lot of dudes, pretty white. I mean, there are some people of color in there, and there are a few women. But it really was the book of poetry that said there's like an American language, and it was really it really drew the line and said we're influenced by jazz, and it's a vernacular language, and it's not British, and it's not English poetry. It was a big deal in the 20th century to say that, and it really
make a new genre.
Yeah. So it was an important book.
I found out that modern verse comes from the idea of modern verse. The term was birthed from an anthology by Faber and Faber of modern verse.
Oh wow.
So I guess that one was influential. The other one I came up with was the Bible. Collections of other people's works.
Right. Truly.
Mahabharata. Has anyone else got influential anthologies?
Well, the Quran.
The Quran, yeah.
The Quran,
no, it's
totally.
basically all religious texts.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
They're seminal anthologies of ideas.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a big stake in the ground. It's like putting a flag down. It's cool. For people who it's a lot of outsider artists, which is a lame term, but right?
Yeah. And I think it's sort of like, and somehow it's sort of like not sexy, but it is.
Yeah.
Because it has all this like kind of connection to like educate. You think anthology. It's like, but in fact it's a gathering.
Yeah.
It's a party.
And you know a lot of these people.
I do know a lot of these people, though 30% are dead. I don't know why I'd love to recite that statistic.
It's way better than 60% are
Yeah.
alive.
And one person died during the making of the book, which was really intense.
Oh.
A writer named Sergio Chechvek. I can't pronounce it correct. He's Argentinian. Chechvek.
Oh, like from the...
Chejec is his name. And he's really great. And he teaches at NYU. I was very excited to meet this guy, and he died.
Oh, that's who you're talking to.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was looking for something that united all of it, because the way you write is like I just have to agree with you with the whole thing. It's like a speech. It's by the end I'm like I don't even know where you're going, but I agree with the whole speech.
Good.
Everywhere you took me.
Okay.
But then I was rereading it, trying to figure out like what is this besides shit that Eileen Myles loves. And the only sentence I could find in the intro or the afterword that was like all of these authors, and then you made a statement, is this. Each of these writers has a discomfort or restlessness that exceeds their category somehow.
Yeah.
Work that acknowledges a boundary and then passes it.
Right. That's good.
You did great. You did it. So fucking smart. It being the hovering monolith, that bigger thing that confirms there's no institution or subculture where any of this all belongs. And so therefore it all belongs here.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. I did think a lot about the word belonging. I thought this is about belonging, even though you shouldn't belong anywhere.
Okay, so now I have to ask you who you didn't. So, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Why is Gertrude Stein not? I have my theories. Why is Gertrude Stein not pathetic? Because you actively say Gertrude Stein is not pathetic.
Right. She does not feel pathetic to me. She feels very dominant in her way. You know, it's sort of like William Burroughs is not pathetic.
Okay, but Allen Ginsberg.
Allen Ginsberg is. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
This is a game that we've been playing at the bookstore, honestly. I think it's like when Notes on Camp came out, and then everyone's like, is it camp or not?
Right.
We're constantly pointing at things and being like, is this pathetic?
Yeah.
So thank you for creating that fun game. My theory was Gertrude Stein was like too much of a Gertrude Stein was like too in charge to be called pathetic.
Exactly. I think that's really true.
Yeah. But now it's been a long time. So they are kind of in the pathetic realm. Maybe? No, it's fine. Whatever.
Where are you going?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Why not Frank O'Hara?
I don't think of him as pathetic either, but Jimmy Schuyler is.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Absolutely. Yeah, Frank O'Hara's too on top of it.
Okay.
Like, the man does not stop dancing, you know? It's just like...
Not enough suffering.
He's heroic. Heroic, different. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, wait, let me go to my questions. Because I'm nervous. I had heard of the Pillow Book because of Rivka Galchen. It's like mommy books. By the way, never mind, that was not a question.
And the person, I was like, I did pathetic things too, because the person, somebody that, like I taught a class at like a college, like one night a week or something, one semester, and then there was somebody in that class who was a really good writer, and I was like, you should go to graduate school or something. And she was working at anyway, she had a job, and it just seemed like she just seemed stuck, and she was, like, so she just applied to graduate school, and I recommended her, and she got in, and she went, and she was very happy. So as she wanted to do something for me, so what she gave me as a gift was her own mangy copy of the Pillow Book.
Oh.
And it was like, I'm giving you and I think it's really sweet when people give you their dirty, beloved, it's like a fetish. So I was just like, how can I not read this? And she goes, no, it's really great, and she was very smart. So.
And she didn't want it back?
No, that was the gift, to give me that book, So then when I was editing, she's in the end, first I decided then I read the book and I was like, this book is really great. So then I thought, let her pick what's in the book. And that was really fun. I thought that was very pathetic. So I did things like that.
You took recommendations from other people?
I let other people be the editor. At certain points I'd be tired and I was like, you decide. And that was sort of fun. It was sort of like having a relationship outside of the book, with the book.
How was this anthology different than your previous anthology, The New Fuck You, which we have 2 copies of?
Right. Well, I was trying to undo, there was a moment when there was a lot of lesbian anthologies and they were all wrong. I was in a lot of them and I was happy about that. But I thought, this girl. You know, it was sort of like there was something too constricting about the category of lesbian, you know? So I think, so what we did is we did a book that was Adventures in Lesbian Reading. So it wasn't about being a lesbian. It was about reading about lesbians, you know? So there was a dude and there was a guy in there who had a story about lesbians, and yeah, it was just kind of like undoing the category in a different way. And also it wasn't all poetry, there was some fiction, there was some performance text. So it was just kind of a lot of undoing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess it was related to this, but it still didn't have, it had more of a cohesive, it had a word. I guess this has a word too.
This has lots, yeah, it's
Yeah.
pathetic.
Yeah.
Is it?
And weirdly, the person I edited that with is the person that I had the conversation who turned me on to the word pathetic. She was the one who said there's something called pathetic masculinity. She was an art critic. So, yeah, interesting.
I kind of want to, I like really liked it when everybody else was talking. So I kind of want to like,
Oh, I know. Well, maybe we're there.
yeah, like
Are we
I feel
there?
like we should let
Does
other
anybody have a
people ask
question?
questions.
Otherwise, people are leaving. I was like, are we, you know.
Oh no, this is the teenagers, it's curfew. Yeah, I waved.
Yeah, there was a hand. Was that your hand?
I did hands. Hi. I was in Riley's
You're
book.
tall, right?
I'm very tall, and
That's
I
so
have
great.
boots on.
I think it must be so great to be tall. I would love, you know, to
Yeah,
be
it's
in a
great, it's
room and to
great.
be able to see everything.
She actually constantly lies about her height.
Yeah, it's great except when it's not.
Yeah.
Anyways, Riley had a book club, and I Love Death was the first selection,
Great.
which you did write an intro for. So technically, for this prolific book club, you were the purveyor of it, or the lead-in for it, and that was many years ago. So this is very special for me to witness. Anyways.
And your question?
My question is that I would just love to hear some of your thoughts on Chris Kraus. When I hear pathetic, I feel like her kind of like bleeding onto the page is
So pathetic.
exactly.
And she was at the pathetic conference. She was the star of the pathetic conference.
But then one interesting thing is that I've been reading that she was really disregarded when it came out, and it's like, oh, this is a private diary, so it doesn't count. But then it's become canonized and like such a cool
Oh, it
thing.
was so stepped. I mean, it was
So,
really interesting to see a book be so like the art world, because it was about this guy Dick Hebditch, who was like very influential cultural critic, and it was how dare she do, you know, write about, make this man. I mean, it was so great because she was flipping that thing where she was being the woman writing about the guy, even though she was writing, and then she flipped that too and wrote about herself.
Yeah.
But I think that it was just like, how dare she? She didn't have the power to do that. And so even in Art Forum, she got a review by this critic, David Reminelli, just basically spitting at her.
Yeah.
It was amazing, you know? And then it was wonderful to see over a decade, the book suddenly become like like a really important book for lots of people. I mean, certainly lots of younger women, but lots of people in general, because it's like it was a exciting performative exercise in abjection, and then to turn that into a power, you know, it's really female masochism. I think it's such a classic. Yeah.
Just wanted to hear you talk about it.
Yeah, no, I love it. It was so easy. I mean, it was like, when somebody asks you to write an introduction, I feel like it's only fun to do if it's so you already know where you're going. It's not work. You just go, blah, you know, and I felt that way about that book.
You wrote in the introduction of that book, everything I write is about me. Do you still feel that way?
I guess so, but I'm sort of trying to figure out how to get out of it.
How to get out of always writing about yourself?
Yeah. So and still doing it, and so I'm writing a novel now, and I feel like that's what I'm doing. You know, like I did Gulliver's Travels. I became really tiny, and then I became really giant, and so I'm doing things that are like on me or weird versions of me.
There's a question.
Hello.
Can you intentionally write pathetic literature? And if so, how?
No, and that's why I didn't. Well, yes and no, because I certainly didn't do a call for pathetic literature when I was putting it together, because I didn't want to see everybody's idea of pathetic. Do you know what I mean? I just knew what that was going to. And even here, like, there's one person in the book, a poet who is very famous and very successful. I mean, you know, she's poet famous, so you may or may not know her. But she's won huge awards and stuff, and when she heard about the book, she was like, I have to be in it. You have to put me in it. She was completely demanding. And I love this, I was like, okay, you know, and so she gave me some stuff that she thought was pathetic, and it was so wrong. You know, because it was just like, because it's just like, it's performing pathetic.
Yeah.
And then it immediately is wrong. You know, and so I found something of hers that I thought was pathetic that, you know, that got better. But I've taught workshops where like writing workshops, and I've invited them to write something pathetic, and people have written some really good things. And I feel bad because at least one of them should have been in the book, and I don't know why I didn't put it in.
Well, that was one of my questions. Will you be doing another? Will
I
there be
thought
more?
of, my joke with people, especially people who I think might want to be in it, is I was like, we're saving you for too pathetic. It's gonna be a slim volume of very special people, and you're in it, you know. So,
That's kind of incredible.
yeah, but will it ever happen? I don't know.
I have a question
Hey.
to that.
Yes, it's Will.
How was the conversation with Grow to convince them to publish a 500-page pathetic hardcover book in the middle of a pandemic? That might be the ultimate pathetic act for the avant-garde publisher.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I think that they didn't expect it would be this big. I think that was, you know, and they pushed me a little bit, and I cut it a little. I mean, I cut it like by 20 pages or something, something really pathetic. But they were remarkable that they, you know, they were like, you know. But on the other hand, they were not into investing in touring it, which was a problem. They were like, it's an anthology. We don't, you know, Boston and New York, that's fine. I was like, what? I was like, this is happening, you know. So that was where they proved themselves to be pathetic.
Doesn't feel like it's only for Boston and New York either.
No.
Like
no.
in any way, shape, or form.
Not at
Actually, I
all.
feel like it's for this.
Yeah.
You know, like.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was for Montreal. It was amazing.
Fuck
It
yeah.
was so Montreal.
Wait, why?
I don't know. It was just, it really felt good there. And there were two or three, I think, Montreal writers in it.
Okay.
One just happened to be Sally, the stage Shōnagon, the same person. She had gotten a Fulbright. She was in Montreal. So people were moving to Montreal to be in the pathetic reading.
To be more but a Drowning Quarterly.
Canada is pathetic. So
Yeah.
that's where we're going.
Popular opinion here.
Yeah.
Someone once told me that they prefer Montreal to New York because people in Montreal don't trust you if you have money. And that's why they left New York to go live in Montreal.
Oh, wow.
Which I do feel like is in line with patheticness. Were you involved in the cover art at all? Like,
Well,
you know those artists?
I knew that Nicole Eisenman, who's my friend and one of my favorite artists, that I wanted her to make the cover. So she just invited me to her studio, and she was working on it. It wasn't even finished. And I was like, because there's a cat on the cover that is like putting its paw out, like dangerously, you know, and it's just the idea of, I mean, the idea of being threatened by a cat is really great, and as a kind of a talisman, like, look, the cat, you know. But it also reminds me of there was this 60s photograph that was very anti-war of, you know, like American soldiers with guns, and there was the blonde hippie chick with a flower, you know, that famous photograph, and I thought, this is that. It's like,
this is totally left field question that I'm just kind of curious about. I told the teen book club that they have to come, so they're here. They're like sitting there. Yeah, they're very sweet, perfect, and wonderful, and they're geniuses. And part of my pitch was like, you guys have seen that thing that is on the internet, I want a dyke for president.
right.
Like that, it kind of like trends
Right,
during
right,
election
right.
season.
Yeah,
And teenagers do know that.
Yes.
Even if they don't know,
right.
you know, like the other things that were happening in the 90s or the 70s. And I was like, that was written because of Eileen Myles.
Right, I'm like off stage in a very famous, more famous. It was like I sound like I'm bragging or lying. It was like I did that.
No, I'm bragging for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. No, it's badass.
And it's so funny because Zoe, they keep referring to it as her poem, and she's like, I don't know if it's a poem.
No, it's like an art piece.
Yeah, but it keeps being kind of so funny because she has gotten more attention for that. I mean, she's got a big career, but she's still gotten more attention for that than
anything else.
So I think that's the funniest thing about the world, right? Is you have no control over what you're gonna get. I mean, it's a great piece.
Or what's gonna last.
Yeah.
For anyone who doesn't know, it's because Eileen ran for president.
In 1992, the last real election.
I won't ask you to expand.
Yeah.
Lizard people took over.
What was that?
I said before the lizard people took over. Just
before the lizard people
just
took over?
playing,
No, I'm for it. Yeah, I'm
playing
agreeing.
by the last election.
I suspect that was a real election. The other one, I'm not sure.
Does anyone else? Come on, put your hands up. No?
We might just be full of that good feeling by now.
Yeah? Oh, Leo's got something.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you for reading, by the way. That was great.
Yeah, thank you. I first discovered you and Martha at Mira.
Oh, do they have?
They have a little trans queer poetry section, so I just discovered it in November. But what is your favorite thing about living in Texas?
Interesting. I mean, I think that well, I will say it has nothing to do with me in a way. In a certain way, it's not my landscape, it's not where I grew up, it's not what, it's really being someplace that doesn't remind me of myself at all, and I find that so exciting.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a really different, like not Boston, it's not New England, it's not New York, it's really this other place, and I find that really special,
Yeah. Cool question, Leo.
What's your least favorite?
What was the question?
Your least favorite thing about Texas?
Oh. Yeah, well, I guess it would probably be the trans thing is pretty winning in terms of, I mean, like Greg Abbott is probably my least favorite thing.
Us too.
Yeah.
That's probably
Popular opinion.
Ours too,
Yeah. In this room, anyway.
Not popular enough.
Yeah.
yeah.
No.
Did you just meow? You
No, I
almost
mean,
meowed.
almost. It's a little bit how I'm feeling.
You said well, but it was more like meow. That is so good.
I'm the cat.
Yeah, we'll end with a meow. Let's all do a collective meow. Great. Once I had a birthday party, and they said, but the cake was there, and the candles were lit, and they said, what should we sing? I was like, who has ever asked that question? So I said, 3 Blind Mice. Weirdest birthday. The meow was right up with it.
I mean, I do have other questions that people offered to me off the top of my head, but they're not relevant to your book.
Only if we could handle it.
Okay, if you could add another zodiac sign besides the one that you are, which one would you be? It was he's a gifted and talented teacher at Rockwell High School. Go Teachers.
That was gonna be my question for you, is if you could pick your own zodiac sign.
Right. It's weird. I am so happy with my zodiac sign.
What is your sign?
Sagittarius.
Yes.
Good sign. And I have good rising and good moon, so I feel like, I mean, it may not have all added up that well, but I'm for it. Yeah. So, no. I mean, I thought Leo, but I really don't want to be Leo.
No. What's your rising? What's your moon?
My moon is Leo, and my rising sign is Pisces.
Oh.
I know, I heard the knowing.
That's the sound that you're actually required to make when someone.
Exactly, as opposed to, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. The other sound.
It's collective believing. That's the zodiac.
Right.
Okay, wait, I'm trying to think of other weird ones. They were all like that.
Do you have any tidbits of advice for the teens, the young people here, for, I don't know, generally speaking, or for pursuing creative work or creative endeavors and stuff like that?
Yeah, how to be a poet.
I think just absolutely just don't make things be perfect, just make more. and just keep going, you know.
Oh, Ellie's got one.
And I think consume a lot, I mean, read a lot. I think you have to read a lot, you know.
Yes.
But everything else that's not reading is good too. But I think make more. Don't make more perfect things, just make more, in my belief.
Generally speaking, what advice do you have for lesbians?
Oh my God.
Ellie.
Generally speaking.
Generally speaking, oh, that's a really hard question. But I mean, I just know that you're great. Know that you're great.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good.
Yeah, I mean, really, I mean, patriarchy, lesbians, it's kind of amazing. You know, like you're not really a useful part, and that's like special. That's really great. It's just like that's like art. It's like being art. I think in terms of gender, you're like art.
Good. Okay, so I've got a question since you brought up lesbians.
Here we go.
It's relevant.
Here we go. That was great.
We were listening, my wife and our lover, we were listening to your reading, and you were talking about your love affair with the professors and their kids, and that convinced me.
I was talking about what?
Yeah, the love affair with the professors and their kids.
Not like you're having an affair with the kids, I think.
Yeah,
It's
no.
not how you guys are saying that.
You were having an affair with a couple and
Yes.
their kids.
Yeah, I was going to professor.
And you convinced me to like let her spend the night with my kids. I still don't know if it was a good decision, but is this pathetic literature, is it a good solution for my heart, right? Because she's gone away. What's, I don't know.
What is the question?
Solution for my heartbreak, like to go read the book. Because I'm not from Texas. I'm just here today.
So what they're asking?
I have heartbreak, and should I read the book?
Which book?
This one.
This one.
Oh.
The pathetic literature.
Yeah.
I mean, sure.
No, you should read Afterglow. It's in this stack.
Did you read Chelsea Girls?
I did.
Okay, so I was going to say, because the couple is in there, of course. And weirdly, the couple have both died now.
Oh.
It's so strange. First the guy died, and then the woman was like the first woman I had been lovers with that died. And it was just so strange. And I mean, here, I'm just going to give you my own personal story. So I gave this reading, and it was weird because I was like, it was sort of private, and then it was public. I mean, it was when I was much younger. I was like 30 when this happened. And so they were a little older than me, but they were like poets who have been around longest. So they were like, 5 years as a poet's generation, And so it was a secret, and it was fun, and then it was known, and then I was bad. I was the bad person and messed up their marriage and all that and stuff. And then years passed, and I think I remained sort of bad because of that. And now they're both dead, and there was some way in which I wasn't allowed entirely to be part of the mourning, especially for her, because I was bad. And it felt sad. And so then I was in Greece. This is just me talking about I'm in Greece doing a reading in September, which was great. And I felt safe in Greece. And so I read a couple of poems that were about being in love with this woman. And then I was saying, and she was dying at that moment. She wasn't dead yet. And so I talked about that, and I started to talk about it, and I started sobbing. And it was like, just such an amazing experience to cry in front of, and I just knew I couldn't have ever done that in America. And people didn't know who I was talking about, and it was really special. And so then there was a recording of it, and I thought, well, they're not going to let me mourn her because I'm bad, but I'm going to put that recording up on my website. And I looked at a recording, and that part is not there. Oh. It's like it didn't happen. It was like, oh my God. It's just like my mourning, my grief, I don't know what happened. Did they think, they probably wouldn't want this recorded, and they just turned the camera off, or I have no idea what happened, but it's just gone. And it's the weirdest thing. So I don't know what that has to do with what you, except that I feel like you can't ever get stuff right. It just is the way it is, right? And we have to live it the way it is. But that's amazing, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a life.
Thank you.
I have a question. I teach 12 and 13-year-olds, and poetry is consistently a struggle. What?
Yeah. What should you do?
I don't want to. How would you convince young people that poetry is worth their time? Like, what would you say to a 13-year-old struggling to understand a poem, struggling to... The question I always get is what does this mean? Why is this worth it?
Yeah.
You know?
I mean,
how would you tease that out to a young person?
I just think that it's already there. It's already there, and the ways they talk, it's like the ways they talk to their friends, the jokes they make, what public, conversation is like, things that they laugh at, songs that they like, ads that they remember. It's just like, it's all poetry. It's all over the place. They're completely, things that, why they would wear a t-shirt that says this, that's poetry. You know, it's just, it's already there. You know, I just feel like I think it's, people kind of hate poets are like little bitches or something. You know, you know what I mean? Like journalists are like, they're always, the New York Times is always really excited to run a new article about why nobody's reading poetry anymore. Why is poetry dead? You know, and it's just like, but it's always wrong.
So do you think it's a classification issue? Like the things we classify as poetry, like we should expand that definition?
Oh, well, I think it's sort of dangerous. It's sort of like weirdly, it's like all these special things that people gather and hold on to and love, and except I think when you get to saying that there's a category that holds all these things, people are like, oh.
That's just so much of the education system, though, is like, great, things have to fit in boxes and you have to dole it out in order.
Right.
I'm with you.
And I think it's often even the way we hear poetry. It's sort of like if, if it was like,
Are you gonna read something badly?
I'm gonna read something badly. I mean, it's just like, well, it's like, why can't I find a poem? It's sort of crazy. Yeah. Well, that's not a poem. You, the best of everything, and shall watch your future career. You know what I mean? Like the way people read poetry sometimes, it's so hard, like every word is so important, as opposed to like a band and somebody's like, and it's like you hear a word and you're like, and then you don't hear, it's sort of like, there's a way in which, because it's such a protected thing in school, that people don't know that it's already every place and they're participating all the time. So somehow or other, I feel like you have to figure out a way to get them to notice how much they already, like everything is like that. Like, and I think you said something like that today. You're already there. You're already doing it. So why don't? Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think to make it messy, and they'll understand that it's theirs.
Okay, good question. Give them something inappropriate secretly. Come on, that's why
bro.
Do you get them to write poems? Do you get them to write poems?
I do. So we started with haiku, which was really fun because it had a very specific form they had to follow.
Right.
And I actually had a student, after our haiku lesson, snuck into my classroom and had written a personalized haiku for every single person in the class and left it on their desk. So it's awesome to see that for some of the kids it's hitting, it's clicking, and they're taking it and they're running with it.
There's always a couple of poets in the room. Yeah. But it's like, I had a class where what do we call it? It was not important, but I made them make up projects. I mean, they were into it. They were all glad to do it. But these two girls, they took a poem by Michael McClure, like a short poem, and they put every word on a refrigerator magnet, and then they made like a tray, and they put all the words of the poem on the tray, and they went around the campus at UCSD and got all these people who worked as not teachers, but who worked at the school to make a poem out of just these words. And it was astonishing that there were so many poems in the one poem. Like the disorder of the words seemed really interesting and important. And I always start teaching poetry with that. Like I read something out loud, like anything, and I just make them take words and phrases and stuff, and then I say make a poem with that. Like so that they're not like going my heart and da-da-da-da and talking about themselves. They're just stuck with this, and so they all have the same language, sort of.
But they still get to be creative in their own way. That's actually fantastic.
Yeah,
I'll steal that.
Because they'll hear each other. Because I stole it from somebody else. They'll hear each other using the same words, and then you pick that word but not that word. And why did everybody use the word auto? You know, I mean, strange things happen, and it makes them a community of language because they already are. I mean, that's the thing; they already are. You know.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. Do you remember the first poem you wrote?
I mean, I wrote ones when I was a child, and they were like weird. I wrote a weird religious poem, and my family looked at me like, "What's wrong with you?" I don't know what was wrong. I felt like for some reason I had the desire to do this.
What was the language you had? Right? Like,
Huh?
had you not heard people read it? Like, we write in the language we have.
I mean, I went to Catholic school, so it wasn't
yeah.
like I was sort of like, what if I did this? Because you know how it would be like, what if I did a bad thing? You know, I was always doing bad things in Catholic school. So what if I did a good thing? And my family was just weirded out. It was like when I got sober, they were like, ah. Are we there?
Yeah, I think that we can let them move.
Yeah.
We can
Right. Thank you so